Good morning, good morning. For me, it's morning.
Yeah, still morning here, barely. Thank you for coming on. I told Lorna that we might have this short clip with Miriam talking about Swami. That did not happen. So we're going directly to you, but we might discuss some of that new book that's come out too, maybe in the course of our Satsang. So.
Yes, I saw that last night. They played it as part of the program last night, and that was fun to see. Miriam, some people may not know, she actually lives here in our community, and she's been talking about the coming of the book, and is very excited that it's finally coming out so everybody can share. And I'm looking forward to all of her stories. She had 14 years of being with Swami, and so she has stories to tell that we haven't heard before. So it'll be really fun to do that. You can go to Crystal Clarity and download the book, and the physical book is going to be coming out to those who are part of the Hot Off the Press Club. So if your people there don't know about Hot Off the Press, check out Crystal Clarity. It's a way of signing up and getting the new releases at a discount, and when they very first come out, so you don't have to wait as long. And this particular book is, I believe, is only going to be released in physical form to those people that are on the Hot Off the Press book club. So that's a little plug for Miriam's book. And good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here with you guys. It's a foggy, smoky morning here in Portland. We've had a lot of fires and a lot of just challenging times, as there are all over. It's always good to be with devotees, be with Guru Bhais, and feel that presence together, no matter what is going on outwardly. This particular reading, you could probably make an argument that any of the readings would be appropriate for Swami's Discipleship weekend, but I think this particular one is perfect. Even the title of it, Truth Invites, It Never Commands, is Swami. Swami Kriyananda was, to use what Devi said last night, Naya Swami and Devi in the presentation, not all of you may have seen it, there was a program online from Ananda Village about the discipleship, and Jyotish and Devi both spoke, and there was, the presentation about Miriam's book and a new video about Swami. And what she said is that Swami's life was an expression of discipleship. And this reading is really, it doesn't even mention discipleship, but it actually is describing and explaining and telling us what discipleship looks like. Truth invites, it never commands. That's what certainly the relationship that those of us who had the privilege of knowing Swami had, was that he was always inviting us to be true to our highest nature and to tune in to Yogananda and the potential that we all had. He always saw us at our highest potential and always supported us as we struggled to realize that and to be that higher potential. And he always said that that's what Master did for him and for the other disciples, was that he always saw them at their highest as children of light, as potential saints, and always invited them to reach for that and to express that. And so I think this the whole Beatitudes that Jesus talked about, that actually is a real long lesson in and of itself, just to go into the Beatitudes. But what he really was saying in a nutshell is, this is your highest nature. This is what, when you attune yourself to those highest realities that are within yourself, then what you attain are all these blessings. You attain these states of awareness and the consciousness that we see reflected in people like Swami Kriyananda and all of the masters and the saints. And so as we try to be disciples and feel our way with that. Last night also Devi was talking about discipleship as being just an expansion. She said discipleship really is just going from the smaller self, from a more narrow reality or expression into a higher expansion of that. And so we're all doing that, whether we have actually taken a vow of discipleship to Yogananda or to another guru. We're all trying to expand our awareness. So we're all trying to do that on one level or another. But when you step into discipleship and you're asking for help, and then the guru can help you do that, can give you that assistance so that you're not struggling and trying to figure it out all by yourself. And that's what Jesus was telling all of the people he was talking to. That's what Swami was always telling us, is that I'll help you, I'll support you. You don't have to do this alone. Spiritual community, you can gather with other people that are trying to do the same thing. You can realize and experience that higher self within you and understand that that's who you really are. And that's what Master did for all of those who were with him. He said, this is my job. I'll help you do this. I had to struggle. I had to get there. All of the masters have had to do the same thing. They've had to go from their lower nature into their higher. And so they know what a challenge it is. This, the Bhagavad-Gita reading is, I think is wonderful. I have the longer version here. And I just want to read this one little piece. Swami says, the statement that even the wise behave in accordance with nature in no way implies that the willpower of sages is shackled like everyone else's. He said, rather, this statement is meant to inspire hope, for it suggests to the struggling devotee that qualities that seem to him impossible to acquire will come in time to seem perfectly natural to him. He needs only to attune himself to higher influences, for nothing in his present nature defines him as he really is in his soul. So here, Jesus's Beatitudes, what Swami was always telling us, what Master was telling Swami, is that our natural tendencies are on a spectrum. This, I was thinking of just struggling with all of the conditions that all of us are under right now. The pandemic and the change in all of our lives, the concern and fear and anxiety on every level of our physical safety and well-being, our social interactions with other people, finances, then all of the political climate that we have. And then on top of that, in many parts of the country, we're struggling with fires all around us, which are really quite an interesting metaphor for just the eruption of human emotion and confusion right now. And then it causes this smoke and fog and of more and more confusion where we don't see clearly. And it's really easy to get caught in being anxious and fearful and more concerned about yourself and your loved ones. And we're literally having to, hide out inside. Just a week ago, we were here, we were able to be outside, people in the gardens. We had planned a big guru celebration here in our community, a little pilgrimage that people could take all around the community, and we have beautiful shrines out, and there's been all this activity around that. And then, the fires, and we can't even really safely be outside like we were. So we're literally going more and more inside, holding up where the anxiety and the fear can really take hold. And it's natural. It's normal. We're here on this planet. We're human beings. We're mortals. We have to live on that material level as well. But what he's saying in this reading, in this lesson, is that there's also a higher nature. There's also a reality that is beyond that and is much higher, that is also natural. It's also our nature as spiritual beings. And we have to tune into that. And it seems like, as he says, it seems like it's impossible. It seems like sometimes there's no way. I look at Swami Kriyananda and the qualities he had, and I think there's no way I can ever manifest and express what he did. But he did it. And so the saints tell us, the masters tell us, you're no different. You can also do it. You can also achieve that level of consciousness if you work at it, if you tune yourself to those higher levels. And that's what we do in our satsang. That's why it's so wonderful to be here with you, because when we come together like this, we just naturally go to a higher octave. You can just feel it shift as soon as you see your wonderful faces and you hear the voices and you play the music, and you just, everything shifts upward. And suddenly things are more clear, things are more calm, things are more bright and hopeful. And it's just because our consciousness had shifted. Nothing else has changed. It's still smoky and fiery outside my windows. Everything, circumstances outwardly have not changed, but our consciousness has shifted upward. And it's not pretend. We're not pretending something that's not real. We're just experiencing a different octave, a different level of awareness. And then we can go up. We can feel that little shift. We can keep doing that and have an awareness and be in our true nature in a different way, and realize that it actually is natural. It actually is. Asha Praver, who lives down at Ananda, Palo Alto, Asha Naya Swami is what they call her now. She often talks about how during her time with Swami, she was often impressed with how he could control his lower tendencies, control his temper, control his concern about himself, control his critical attitude and all. She just sort of assumed all of that was there, and he just had better control of all of it, until she realized after years of being with him that he wasn't suppressing or controlling anything. All he had done is work on lifting his consciousness and his awareness to a higher level so that it wasn't there anymore. There wasn't criticism of other people and judgment and fear for himself and concern about his own welfare and all of those things that most of us struggle with. He had, gone to a higher level in his higher nature and had let go of or overcome or transmuted, however you want to think of that, the lower nature. And he just lived at a higher level all of the time. And as a result, he experienced God's bliss, because that's where that bliss is. As you go higher, you get more and more a taste of that joy and that bliss and that peace and all of those qualities of spirit. And it's natural. It's natural. I really like to remind myself of that I'm not trying to become something that's unnatural or unreal or is foreign to who I really am. That's who I really am. That's who we all are. And Swami was just the perfect example of how you do that. You become a disciple to truth. If you're not a disciple of Yogananda, become a disciple to truth. And that will lead you to your guru, to your teacher who will help you achieve that higher level. I'll stop. And if you have questions or if there's other things you want me to address, please let me know. Now's the time.
Well, we can open up our cameras now, and feel free to put either questions in the chat box, or if you want to address Lorna and the Sangha directly, feel free to do that. Just know we are on Facebook Live. We always like to let people know that. And there's Sam and Pam from, they've been going through a lot of smoke and down there in southern, well, it's not Southern California, but south of the Bay Area.
Central California.
What?
The Central Coast.
Monterey.
Oh, okay.
Central Coast.
Yeah, there you go.
Got it.
Are you, you're in Monterey, is that what you said?
We're very close to Monterey, about halfway between Santa Cruz and Monterey itself. We're 6 miles from the Pacific Ocean or the Monterey Bay.
We're surrounded by the fires as well. We've got the smoke coming from the south in Big Sur and smoke coming from the north in Santa Cruz. So we're experiencing the same thing. You can't see across the road.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I have a son who's down there. He's in the Air Force. He's in Monterey at the Language Institute. And he has sent some pictures of the sky and what it looks like down there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we were both in the Air Force as well. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
They were flying biplanes at that point.
Oh, wow.
I don't think so.
I'm impressed.
You're well preserved, if that's the case. I'll just say something here, and this had to do with sort of how we attune ourselves, and just sort of the grace of God that plays such a big part in this as well. That little piece that we wanted to play about a story of Miriam was, and I cannot do it justice. We will take the excerpt from it and share it with people when we get a chance. But what she had said was just that she was very professional with her dealings with Swami and had a different relationship with Swami than most other people that were around him all the time.
Right.
And she had begun to question what that relationship was, and like when he was gonna, after he, died, she didn't even know if she had a context to continue within Ananda because of this specific relationship she had, and she didn't feel the same kind of connection that so many other people expressed. It was very interesting little excerpt there. But the beautiful thing was, and this is what was very inspiring to me, was that, we talk about attunement and discipleship. Everybody has a karma, and so everybody's got these different relationships and different veils and permutations. And so this veil that she felt was between her and Swami, it lifted, one might say miraculously, right as he was passing. She said she had felt this love that, she had wondered about all this time, for these years, and all of a sudden that veil lifted, and it was so beautiful the way she described it. And I think about ourselves, because we all, Swami's no longer in the body and whatnot, how we attune ourselves to him, and some people, will say, oh, I feel this way or that way, and others are like scratching their head, and it's like, just put it all aside and just keep giving it to God, and you just never know when that connection will. It's like the nail we often talk about. You pull, you don't know how long it's going to take before that nail is going to come out. But it was very inspiring to me to hear her story along those lines, and so I just throwing that one out there.
Well, and in this reading, they use the word, by our own nature.
Right.
So I think that's also in reference to our own karma, to the fact that we're all unique manifestations of the same one spirit, but we're all unique. How Swami expressed discipleship in principle is the same for all of us, but what it sort of looked like with him is his unique expression. And for all of us, it's going to be different. And for those who never really knew Swami, it's going to be different. He still can be an amazing example and an inspiration to people who didn't, never saw him in person. Thanks a lot to the fact that we have, video and audio and all of so much of his life, so that we have that ability to tune in that way. But still, the idea of how does a disciple behave? How do I tune into truth? How do I, do that in a way that is practical and real? Those are questions that you can look at Swami's life and you can see. But we have to tune into our own nature. And that's what I think is just the absolute astonishing beauty of this path and of yoga, is that when we meditate, even if we all sit and do the same practice, the same exact Hong Sa, the same energization exercises, if we do those practices, it opens us to our own true nature within. And when that door opens, we all see something different, because we're all created differently. And it's going to find expression in different ways. It's funny that it should seem obvious when you look at Ananda and all of the devotees, all of the people, at how everybody is so different. And you have all these great souls that now, with everybody being online, you can tune in, you can go to Ananda India and Ananda Sisi and all of these and see people and hear them and see what all these devotees are like. And they're all beautiful and they're all so different. And yet there's still this fear our ego has that if I take this path, that I try to move forward on this, what am I going to become? What am I, what's going to happen to me, the real me? And we just have to try to have faith that that real me is going to be another just beautiful, free expression, just like in our, in the wisdom affirmation that we had, that as I learn the lessons that life teaches me, I grow toward ever greater joy and freedom. It just becomes more and more joyful, more and more free. But it will be according to our nature, not someone else's. The beautiful souls there in Dallas, it just, everybody is this wonderful expression of this.
So we do have a question in the chat box. It says, Lorna, what is your natural daily sadhana, not amount of time, but various practices you do every day?
Well, I try to do what Yogananda and what Swami taught us, the basic practices of Kriya, because this is the path of Kriya Yoga. So the energization exercises, Hong Sa, the Om technique, and the Kriya technique proper. Those are the basis of the sadhana. It doesn't look the same for me every day. I'm one of the, I'm not, this steady on, and I have a little more trouble with that kind of discipline. But all of those practices are very much alive for me. And then, and I find various ways to do it. Like right now, I'm leading a week, Monday through Friday, noon meditation online, just a half an hour. But I do it from here, at our community. And once COVID hit, I decided I needed to serve. Obviously, I needed to find some way to support our Sangha here, but I also needed to find an anchor myself that would help. And that that just occurred to me. I need to do a meditation. So I do that Monday through Friday. And I have found even that short amount of time has been very, very useful for me to know that Monday through Friday, I do this and other people are waiting for me. You know, the world's not going to fall apart if Lorna doesn't do it, but there are people who depend on that. And I have made a promise. So I show up and I'm here and I do that. And I have found that is very, very helpful for me, just in the middle of the day to take that time away. I do a lot of, right now, one of my main practices, as it were, is gratitude, is trying to keep gratitude really at the forefront of my mind, because it's just incredibly easy for me to slip into everything that's wrong. It just seems to be wrong in the world. And we've just really, really struggled since we started here. Once COVID hit here in Portland, I've been the one who's sort of been the tech support here. We don't have a tech team. We didn't have anybody who knew how to step up and start doing all this online stuff. And we've really struggled with trying to serve and hold the Sangha together. And we've gone through major transitions. Today, the managers of our Ananda community are leaving and moving to Ananda Village. That's going to be a huge shift. And it seems to be just changes, nothing to really hold on to. And so gratitude for me is a big one. It's just when I find myself sort of ticking off all of those things that are bothering me, I fight back and say, thank you, Master, thank you, Master, thank you, Master. And I try to think of everything from the hummingbird I saw this morning to, anything, to say, thank you, Master, thank you, Master, thank you, Master. Thank you for the lessons I'm learning. Thank you for all of the things that I have realized and I've learned in these last 6 months that have been so painful and so challenging. Thank you, Master. Gratitude that's been a big one.
Thank you, Lorna, for that answer and for being with us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Are there anything else?
Yeah, so I'll toss out there this from what you said just a little while ago, that over the years here in Dallas, had fairly new people occasionally ask, so you guys are doing, boy, it's pretty rigid, I think is the word they used. You have energization, you have Hong Sa, you have Om, and then you have Kriya, if you work toward it. And they were expressing what they felt was a rigidity of it. And from something you said, this is where the comment comes now. I think it's so beautiful that, number one, yes, we do ask that this is what we do, because it's a big commitment to ourself, for our soul, to say, yes, Lord, I want to know the nature of my soul. I want to express your divinity within me. And Yogananda says, here's what you do. It's laid out. I don't have to create my own plan. Here it is. And if I want it, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And, it doesn't have to be perfection.
Right.
And yet it happens. But the good news is we don't become like the robots. We're not a robot of Yogananda. We are not a robot of Kriya Yoga. That the humanness here, we'll call it the personality, still gets to express itself as the divine awakens more and more. And that's the beauty that I see in this path, and that is how I've responded to people when they do ask that question. And the last thing is, we have so much. Yeah, we have those 4 major techniques, if you will, but we also have in the background, so that my sadhana, I don't like it to get boring. Yeah. So I incorporate what I incorporate every day, but then I'm going to toss in oming at the chakras, and we pulled that out just last week out of the clear blue. Suddenly I heard, use oming at the chakras to lead this meditation. It was like, wow, I haven't thought of that in weeks and weeks and weeks. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then we have Navi Kriya, and then we have all these pranayams. So the variety, there's no really rigidity. Here's the plan, but boy, look what else you can toss in to make it interesting and different in case you're getting bored. And that's the excitement for me. And I haven't seen many robots at Ananda, like you said, all over the world. We have so many different people. They talk different, they have different accents maybe, they look different, and they'll say, like you're saying, wow, we are so blessed.
Well, and the longer you work with these techniques, the longer you're on the path, the more you realize that everything is about consciousness and it's not about technique. And if people tried to tell me that 30 years ago when I was newer on the path, and I didn't understand it. I understand it a lot more now. I think I still have a way to go to really understand that, but it's all about consciousness. It's not about doing the technique of Hong Sa, but the consciousness with which you do it and the consciousness with which you practice, the energization and everything else. And they're just tools that we have to work on our consciousness. And then Swami gave us all, then there's all these other things. As you said, there's tons of other things. There's tuning into all of the talks and the music and the inspiration from other devotees. There's Master's picture is a technique in itself to use and look at Master's eyes and just try to tune into him directly. All the books that we have, all of the ways we have to work with our consciousness and just raise ourselves to a higher level. And you can feel it when you have that experience of, oh yes, that's right, this is true. You're just shifting your consciousness. And once you do that, once you have those experiences, you want more. You want to look at the world through those eyes all the time, rather than just occasionally. And it really helps you to keep going, to keep doing that. But it also is, it's funny that our ego just gets, our ego gets scared, because if you go to a life coach, or you want to fix your life, if you want to have a successful business and you go to a business coach, or if you want to have a healthier body and you go get a physical coach to teach you on how to train, you just follow their instructions. You say, I need help doing this. I don't know how to do it. You're the expert. Tell me how I'm supposed to do this. And people don't even flinch. They don't think that's strange at all. They think that's a good use of their money and their time. And then when it comes to the spiritual path, the ego is much more threatened and starts balking and saying, but wait, I have to do that, or I have to do this, or I have to surrender, my will. And it's all because we're getting to the core of the whole reason that we're on this planet. The whole reason why we're here is to work on that. We get scared. It's scary. Thank you, Supriya. So good to see you.
So there is another question in the chat box. It's from Mallory. It says, Portland has had so much racial unrest. Does that touch the community there, and how do you deal with it?
Well, it's true. It's one of the sort of the metaphorical fires that has been burning here for quite a while. The downtown area looks like a war zone. We have people, they call it protesting. I call it rioting and damaging and destroying people's lives and businesses, all because, it's our lower nature says it's okay to do that. It doesn't touch us in the sense that here in the community, And at the temple, we're in those neighborhoods where that's happening. It's not. We haven't had that directly affect us here at the community or at the temple. But it certainly affects people's consciousness. It's hard to have that happening, and everybody has their own karma around it. So people with strong karmic lessons, get more caught up in that, and others, it's not a big deal. I'm married to a Black man. I have children of mixed race. It's part of my reality, awareness of just our struggle with all of these issues has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. But I don't have a strong karma around it. And my family doesn't either. It's not something I get caught up in. And so for me, it's not, it's a side issue. It's a peripheral issue, because my karma is not, what do I want to say? It's not triggered by all of that. But there are others, who it's much more important, and it's much more of a central concern for them. So there are people in our Sangha who have taken part in some of the protests, and feel much more drawn to be involved in that and express what they want to express through that. We have a lot of choices right now about which way we want to put our energy. And so everybody has to make a choice, where do they want to put their energy? Where is it going to? And as devotees, we struggle with just trying to do that consciously. Where am I going to grow? That's the question we have to ask. Is putting my energy into that going to help me grow, or is it going to pull me into disharmony and emotion and reactivity? And so those are the choices that we all have, and as devotees, we need to be really, really careful about which direction. And it's absolutely individual, for all of us. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I think there's so much frustration and anger, and Master always talked about, and Swami always talked about solution consciousness, and trying to be a part of the solution, trying to do positive things to affect whatever the situation is, and I just wondered what your thoughts around that might be, as far as working toward a positive way to express our energies.
Well, it's true. And Swami put it, and Jyotish has often said this in different contexts, is always to put your energy for something, never against anything. If we find that we're reacting against something, it puts up a whole different sort of domino effect of our energy and our consciousness. If we're against something, even if this thing or attitude or whatever that we're against is obviously a dharmic or wrong or causing harm, we're against that. What we have is a sense of reaction and criticism and judgment, and trying to fix something outwardly. And it's not the attitude that we need, that's going to be helpful for us as devotees. To be for something, to be supportive, putting out our energy in support of something you can just feel it. Just as you say the words, you can feel the energy uplifting. I'm for this. I want to put my support into this. I want to help these people or this cause or this effort to uplift, to inspire. And your energy just goes like this. And when you're against something, there's this tension, this automatic tension, and this sense of resistance and anger and frustration. And so we really have to pay attention to what is happening with our energy. So being for, again, I think it's a really personal question about how do I express that is this my place to grow and to be a voice for something? Or is it more just inwardly, I support, I'll pray for those, I'll give my energy in the sense of my attitude and my support to those people who are trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do. We really have to look at energetically, how are we responding? Because then we also, as I talk, I remember this friend of mine who went to a lot of the protests here. I had no desire, no urge, no interest in going to any protest. But I was speaking to somebody else who did, and that attitude of I'm for this. Didn't even matter whether I was for exactly what he was for, but I was in support of him and his desire to put his energy into what he felt was really important. And so all of my support was for him as an individual to find his way, to express what he wanted to express, to hold on to master as he did that. And there was just this upwelling of support and friendship. And the details didn't matter, beyond that. So I think we just, like I said, that there are things that trigger us karmically. So if it's a real strong trigger that is pushing buttons for us and is really, we're having a lot of reactivity, then we need to step back and try to figure out how to move in the direction that's going to be positive, not only for other people, but really for us, for our own development. It's very, very important to put our own personal development right in, not as more important, but just as important as everybody else. So we need to be real careful about that. Swami counseled very strongly that if we put our own spiritual development at risk, then we're not doing what we should be doing as devotees. We're because the whole purpose of our life is to expand and move forward on the spiritual path. And if what we're doing is jeopardizing that, then we're going in the wrong direction.
I often think of Sri Yukteswar's, the quote from Sri Yukteswar, that anger is just thwarted desire. And so
Yes.
it all comes down to desire yet again.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Again.
Once again. So we do have another comment in the chat box. Master's Peace and Harmony prayer has helped me keep my energy positive when I feel myself falling into fear. So
it's another wonderful tool that we've been given, and it can help us. Just saying those words, peace and harmony, just puts us in tune with peace and harmony. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. I agree that prayer is a jewel for us to have. The other one I try to do a lot is the Warriors of Light affirmation that we have, that we've been focusing on as a Sangha. That has a lot of power in it. You can feel the power of light in that affirmation. And I would encourage everybody to do that more than just once a week. We do it. And if you're not going to the Thursday morning world prayer satsangs that they offer online, I would encourage you to, because that's a wonderful venue to feel that power of light, and also to join your energy and your what do I want to say, your discipleship and your commitment to this ray and to this path, and to join it with everybody else in the world. It's a wonderful thing to be that, and it's only 20 minutes long, but it has amazing power in it to tune into that and to feel connected to Guru Bhais all over the world. And to really, again, that's another example of being for something. What we're doing is strengthening the light. We're not trying to battle anything except darkness. So we're just strengthening the light. We're not trying to react to or fix or be against any of these all the particular issues that are out there. We are just strengthening the light. And I would really encourage you.
We do that as part of our Monday morning meditation.
Good. Wonderful.
So
There's a really strong depth to that affirmation that I can feel every time we do it. Great.
Lorna, may I ask you a question about that, please?
Of course.
This is Ellen from Austin. I just don't like to be on Facebook, but I'm so happy to see your beautiful face. So I wanted to ask about the Warriors of Light affirmation. I go to the Thursday call every Thursday. I love it so much. And you know, when I don't know how to say this, but when scientists talk about the reptilian part of the brain, they say that the brain just hears the word, like in that affirmation, it has the word.
You cut out, but I think you said the word warrior.
The affirmation has three words: fear, hatred, and disease.
Mm-hmm.
And scientists talk about the fact that
I'm hearing somebody else's microphone too, so people make sure you're muted. Go ahead, Ellen.
So to me, they say that part of the brain hears those words also: fear, hatred, disease.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I come up against that when I say that affirmation. It just feels like every time I say it, I am implanting those words which were not in my consciousness prior to saying the affirmation. I love all the beautiful parts about it, but I have a hard time that we are saying over and over and over again this affirmation that is implanting fear, hatred, and disease. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes. I understand what you're saying. I do know that there is spiritual truth as well as, scientific truth to the power of words and the vibration that they hold. What this vibration, though, of the affirmation holds for me is the power of light. And that to me, it's a way of confronting those realities, and they're very real right now on this planet, especially. It's always true, but right now, the power of fear and hatred and disease is very, very strong, and I don't think we're giving any more strength or power to those realities. We are strengthening light, and we are confronting that. We're standing there as warriors of light and recognizing and seeing those things for what they are and saying there's a stronger force here. The stronger force is light. The stronger force is that attunement with God, and we will overcome. See, I focus on overcome, and the sense of a warrior is, again, is strength and courage against those forces, because those forces are real and strong. Even Jesus said, when Mary was anointing his feet, and Judas said, why is she doing this? We could have used the money for the poor. That's expensive ointment, and it could have been used in another way. And he said, the poor you will always have. You always have those, that part of the world. There's always delusion. There's always going to be Maya. We can't make that go away. But me, he said, you don't always have. Mary was recognizing his presence and the power of his presence. And that affirmation to me is a recognition of the power of the presence of God and the masters, this particular ray that we have, that we've attuned ourselves to, And it's a way of saying there's a higher power here, and we are part of that. We are part of the light. And Babaji said, I don't have, I'm not here to fight the darkness. I'm here to strengthen the light. And that's what I focus on. And those three words, I think if they weren't included in that, there would be a sense of unreality about that. There would be a sense of sort of woo-woo or wishful thinking about that affirmation. To me, those three words help make it grounded in what is it that we're actually trying to do? What is it? Why are we even saying this? Why is it necessary? Why do we need this affirmation now? We need it now because the battle is fierce and very, very real. And so that's how I see it. But I understand what you're saying.
Beautiful. That just helps so much. Thank you so much. That was
You're welcome.
concise and just right.
You're welcome. Good.
Thank you.
I want to just toss in that I also, at the very beginning, saw what you saw, Ellen. I questioned it in my own mind. I didn't ask it out loud, and I'm glad you did. That Norma, I'm going to call you Norma. Lorna could speak about. And here's how I worked through it in the first few weeks. I felt like, number one, it was the powerful word of overcome, but then fear with faith. And so what I did was, it was overcome, and it was an offering from within me, but also for the whole world, the offering of fear with faith to overcome hatred for the whole world, and in case there was any in me, with love. So that's what I had to work through in just a few weeks. So I appreciate that you were able to ask that out loud and hear Lorna speak on it too. Thanks.
Thanks, Supriya. And Kim, thanks for your comment in the chat.
Yeah, she just says, I have the same reaction to those words as Ellen describes. In my approach is to say, love, faith, and health louder than the negative words.
Mm-hmm. And this is based on, Swami's and Master's teaching that says you always emphasize the opposite. If you notice a fault in yourself or something that you see needs to be overcome, you go the opposite direction. You emphasize the opposite. And I think this is also an opportunity for a lesson for us to remind ourselves that how do you overcome hatred? How do you overcome fear? How do you overcome disease? And it's right there in the affirmation. It's a reminder to us how you do that. What do I tune into in order to go in the other direction? Anything else?
Hi. I was thinking anything that Master says has been spiritualized. So that's how I always catch it. Even if he were to say mud, 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 basically, if he had spiritualized it, that's enough for me when it comes to, I was thinking too, just briefly, I don't have anything against the protests if they were balanced in a certain way. When you say the word like police and you say it's this way, no, it's not that way. There's levels of consciousness to every policeman. Right. Every policeman is searching for his best and her best self.
Absolutely.
And it's like saying China caused all these problems. No, or causing economic problems, or this person in this government, this country. No, it's a couple of people in that country, a few power hungry perhaps, or fear mongering people that can create a really bad situation. But the whole country itself is beautiful. Most people are. I'd say it's pretty much the same everywhere you go.
Well, yeah, this is a very, mixed up world. There's a lot of levels of consciousness all at the same time. That's the beauty of this school that we're in here, that there's so many things we can learn, but it also makes it quite challenging. because we're all drawn here for all different reasons. And I agree, when we start clumping things together, especially in an outward way.
Yes.
Police, there's no such thing as a police.
No.
It's a person.
Yeah.
And we're all souls, and we're all tuning into different levels of consciousness. And so when we take the very, very smallest definition of somebody, and then extrapolate from that, or use that as our way to relate to people, then we get into real trouble. We really get into trouble that way.
It's like we need to find a new way to language our differences with people. Kind of like when we might talk about people in prison. There's some fine people I've known from prison, and
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's from 0 to 100 everywhere you go, and levels of consciousness, and somehow we need to speak about what we disagree with people, and at the same time emphasize that which is best in them.
Yeah.
Or that which, because people at their essence are God.
They're souls.
Yeah, they're souls.
Souls are God, exactly.
So it's just kind of the expression of their expression of it is not expressing the gold that's there.
Yeah.
And we can say, hey, there's a higher expression that you could possibly make. But
There
anyway.
will be. The language will change. It is changing, and there will be. I'm always comforted, or I find it very fascinating when you look at the study of the yugas, and which are the cycles of time, and the way that the authors Vyasa and Guru described it in the Yuga book that they have. Language, outward language, vocal language, is actually a manifestation of lower consciousness, of lower yugas. That language came into being as the consciousness of the planet was descending, and people were no longer able to communicate on a higher level of telepathy or a mind or intuition or those levels. And so as consciousness got darker, we had to create language. And language is, as I said, it belongs with the darker yugas, with the darker ages. As we rise in consciousness and we come into higher yugas, language will also change and rise, and it'll get to the point where we don't need verbal language anymore. We communicate on a more intuitive level where we'll understand each other a lot better. So I think, but it's slow. It doesn't happen in one lifetime. It's
it makes me think that, if people were to invite me to something like a protest, I wouldn't want it to be called that. I would want them to say a protest encouragement rally. Kind of one half and one half of this, at least they're have that other half of it that's saying, hey, y'all are doing a really good job at this, this, and this, and this. It's just that.
Well, there's an interesting, I'll just share very quickly, that we had a few years ago when we had Jyotish and Devi here, we had an event and we had people come, we had speakers who came, and there was one particular speaker that was very impressed with our music and was really impressed with our choir. So there was then, after our event, there was another event that they invited us to as a choir because they said, we would really love to have your music. Would you come to this event? Well, the event was a political event, and the language that they had, that they were using in their presentation and in their literature about it was very anti this and anti that, and we need to stand up against these things. And we struggled with whether or not to go, because on one hand, singing Swami's music and expressing that level of consciousness may have been very helpful in that situation. And yet, when we finally asked Jyotish about it, and that's what he told us. He said, never stand up against anything, So it was a real lesson for me in that even expressing Swami's music, even as a group of devotees, being outward and sharing that with others, which you would think would be a really good thing. He really cautioned us against being in an environment of reactivity and of protest against other people. And so we didn't do it. It's something that was very instructive. Jyoti wants to say something. Jyoti, where are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so good to hear your talk, Lorna. And I wanted to say something in response to the prayer or the affirmation with the negative words, like fear and hatred and such. And I am a very sensitive person, and I'm so sensitive to words that I physically, not just mentally, react to words, negative words, but my body also, goes and it kind of constricts itself. I feel my heart, my breath just giving up, and I stop breathing, and there's a constriction in my heart, I feel, and such when I hear negative words being bombarded here and there, even if it's not coming to me. If I hear people arguing, that's the reaction in my physical body.
Right.
So, and I've always been that way. So I want to say that we shouldn't take everything literally, and all of the teachings personally. This is, and I want to ask you as to, is that a good thing to do, or should I change my viewpoint? And I will, because I'm on this path with Yogananda, and I will take advice from Naya Swamis and from the senior Guru Bhais who have been on the path much, much longer than I have. I'm sorry, you just shifted, so my eyes shifted.
That's okay.
I don't know what happened from down here. You went way up. This is good. As I was saying senior, you just went elevated. That was interesting. That is Yogananda saying, hello, you got it, girl.
So what is it you do?
So yes, what is it I do? In the teachings, what I take, I tell myself, take what resonates with you and just leave the rest. So that's what I do. And the thing that I do is I have noticed, and people have pointed out, that even in the Bhagavad-Gita, there are contradictory statements in different chapters. And from a spiritual teacher, I learned, because I did ask that question. I was like, well, sometimes you say you need to have faith as small as a mustard seed, and you will be enlightened. It says that in the Bible, and you will be helped. But then in some of your talks, you say that your faith should be at 100%. Unless it is at 100%, you won't be, God will not take charge of your life. So what do you mean? And so he explained it beautifully. This was Swami Mukundananda, not with Ananda. He is a different Swami. He explained it so beautifully in very simple terms. He said, so even in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible, you may see contradictory statements, and that is because all of us are at different levels of consciousness, and we will pick up whatever resonates with us. Because what we are trying to do is teach people, and this is how he explained it. He said, what we are trying to do is teach people as though they are in grade school. If they are in first grade, I don't want to teach them lessons for 8th grade. I want to teach them just enough so they can go to 2nd grade, and just enough so slowly and gradually they can elevate in their consciousness. So I'm not going to teach you things to raise your consciousness to 100% if you are not even at a mustard seed yet. So when I hear affirmations like this, which do not at all resonate with me, because I guess I'm not at a consciousness that is so high at a level that I will ignore the negativity of those words and just focus on the positive words in the affirmation. So instead, I will just let go of that affirmation and say, this one is not for me. And I will just say something like, I invite peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And I'll use that as my affirmation and just completely not even use the other affirmation because it's not for me. So what do you think about that? Is that the right thing to do for me?
I think it's absolutely right. I had a conversation with somebody here who, it wasn't those 3 words that were bothering her. It was the idea of a warrior. She was struggling with the idea of being a warrior. And I told her exactly the same thing. Is, first of all, there's no rule in Ananda that says you have to use this affirmation. It's okay if you don't. It adds power and unity when more of us do any of these practices together. But on the other hand, you're absolutely right. We are all at different levels. We all have different karma. If it's something that's not inspiring and it's not uplifting you, battling with it too much, then maybe it's something that you put aside and say, I can't tune into that right now, but I can tune into a different way of doing this. So absolutely, we all have to find our ways to do that. And it's true of all of the teachings that we have. It's why we can continue to read the autobiography of a yogi and find new and wonderful lessons and things in it that we didn't think we ever heard before. Because as our consciousness shifts, we tune into different things, and there's things that we hear in a different way, things that resonate in our heart in a different way, karma that comes up for us, and now this applies where before it really didn't make any sense. So as we learn and we grow, just like it said in our affirmation today on wisdom, as we learn and grow, then we gain more and more wisdom. So
yes,
absolutely, Jyoti, I think you're doing perfectly well.
Thank you. And I have found that even Swami Kriyananda I listen to Treasures Along the Path all the time. And the recent one that I heard was actually about change, how to benefit from changes in your life. Since we were doing all this about change, with India and stuff.
Right.
So when I heard that, I heard, he said in his talk saying, you don't have to beg for anything, because God is like, you can ask God for what you want, because God is like, you are a child of God, you're a friend of God, you should never beg for anything. And on the other hand, so even Ananda teaches at the same, with the same philosophy as the Bhagavad-Gita.
Of course.
Right? So on
Yes,
the
of
other
course.
hand, so here is the contradiction I saw to that. And I shouldn't call it contradiction. No, here is another level of teaching that he has used Yogananda made the song. I don't know who composed this song, where will thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away, without seeing you, Lord. So that is like, to me, that is like, it makes you just want so much, you're begging and you are weeping tears of just yearning to see God, to want God. And on the other hand, he says, you don't have to beg, just ask. I want to see you, God. So similarly, I take the similarities from Bhagavad Gita in the teachings of Ananda, and I say, yeah, I guess it's okay for me to take what I want, what resonates, and just leave the rest for now. Maybe I'll come back to it later.
Well, the Bhagavad-Gita is one of our scriptures. We read from it every Sunday. So
yes,
like
true.
the whole point of Master coming to America 100 years ago was to bring us those original teachings of Krishna.
Yes.
And then to show also how they resonate and how they're parallel with the original teachings of Christ and Krishna. So Absolutely. Tune into the Gita. It's good. It's a good thing to do.
Well,
Thank you,
and
Jo.
I think
So nice to see you.
Thank you again, Lorna.
it's a perfect bringing it back to home because what we were talking about there was, just what we did in the reading, which is you come to this from where you're at. God accepts you where you're at from that level, and it expands from there. So it seems like a perfect full circle. We don't have to be other than who we are. We just work from where we're at and give it to God, and that grace will, in the love that awakens within us, will bring us into the next level of consciousness.
Exactly.
So anyway, we're so grateful for you attending and being with us today, and for
Thank
your
you. Thank you.